Hello all, just 1 minute please, thank you. So, first of all, thank you all for being part of our Unifying Your Organisation networking event. Really appreciate it and really appreciate you being existing customers and also some prospective customers here this evening. My name is Richard Valenti, I'm the Senior Director of Sales for Asia Pacific, and I'm very pleased to run through the agenda of the evening. Our goal was to make this fun and relaxed. We are looking around about 30 minutes, and we have 3 very interesting and informative speakers who are going to provide their perspectives. To commence, we have David Rich, who's a VP of Sales for Asia Pacific, who's going to share his thoughts, leveraging his experience and many years of working with the Fortune 1000 organisations and trying to improve the way they collaborate. Secondly, and after David, we will have Audrey. I knew I was going to say that. Apologise. Audrey, I was going to say Williams, but William, who is the Head of Research from Frost & Sullivan for Australia and New Zealand. And she'll be sharing the trends in the Australian collaboration services market. And then we'll finish off with Christopher Franke, who's our Head of Unified Communications for Asia Pacific. And he'll be talking about and sharing his thoughts around the changing world of collaboration. So, please, to commence proceedings, warm welcome for David Rich.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. As Richard said, my name's David Rich. I'm basically the head of sales for InterCall in the region. I'm based in Singapore, normally, and it's great to be here. I get down to Australia about once every quarter, and I'm glad to be here today. Thank you all for turning up. Much appreciated. In true Australian fashion, there's plenty of alcohol to be consumed. I'd like to celebrate England winning the Ashes. That's the ladies' version, of course, which we saw the other day. About the only thing we do win now. So I've got a little bit of a text that I'd just like to read, so I try not to read too closely, but I've written a few thoughts down that I'd like to talk to. When my staff hear me talk a lot about focusing on outcomes. What do we sell? You know, we're in the business of selling outcomes. And I want to talk a little bit about what that means tonight, because I'd like to share that with this broader audience. You know, as you can see on this slide, we, InterCall, are in the top right-hand corner leaders quadrant of the Frost & Sullivan Champions Quadrant. And our parent company, which is West Corporation, is in the top right-hand corner leadership quadrant for unified communications as a service. So we have some leadership in this space of unified communications as a service. We achieve this leadership by leveraging the best-of-breed technologies that are out there, the names that we all know and love, the Microsofts and the Ciscos and so forth. And we integrate that into our proprietary platforms and distribute that integrated capability on a truly global level. And that's, I think, in a nutshell, what differentiates us in the marketplace and what lends us to be seen as leaders by third-party analyst organizations in terms of what we do. We're not the biggest brand out there, and people often talk about Cisco and Microsoft and who are you. But actually what we're really good at and where our niche is taking that best-of-breed technology and making it better, more usable, more easy to use for the client, and integrating that and delivering a customer service value proposition around it, which we believe is compelling and, as I say, has given us that leadership position. You know, UCaaS, by implication, is Unified Communications as a Service. And it's the as-a-service terminology that implies that we're providing technology to deliver better outcomes. We're delivering outcomes for our clients that can and should be measured in terms of improved productivity and efficiency. It's fair to say that historically, Most people think about collaboration tools in terms of meetings. How do you have a meeting? And that's usually being internal. That's been the mainstay of demand for audio conferencing, which is historically where InterCall's business was built. But what we're seeing now is that meeting technology, of course, has moved to be a combination of audio and web and video. So the meeting experience is much richer and much more practical benefit to the business than it was as just a standalone audio value proposition. And we've really integrated our capabilities around video, audio, and web in order to provide that capability as a meeting-based value proposition for our clients. But the trend we're seeing today is that the collaboration tools now are being leveraged to address a much broader set of business challenges. And I want to talk a little bit about that. You know, marketeers, for example, are leveraging the web, leveraging webcasting, leveraging YouTube-like capabilities for corporate videos. And they're doing that to reach a much broader audience and really reach out and improve brand awareness and product awareness on a much broader scale. And we're helping them to do that. In corporate communications, event services are being leveraged in order to improve the way that companies are communicating internally with their employees, so the chairman's town hall and the like, and externally with customers, the media, PR for PR activities and otherwise. There's been a big uptrend in our business in this area, and we see these as-a-service value propositions really growing substantially going forward. Australia, by the way, is where, in my region, in Asia-Pacific, we're seeing this adoption really starting first. It's not exclusively here. Other countries are embracing these technologies for those reasons, but in Australia it seems to be far more prevalent right now. HR are using cloud-based video bridging to enable better and more productive interviewing. Webcast and video are being used for training and development, being able to provide more training through the use of technology than you could do through the traditional forms, both in a reactive way where you have content stored that people can access, and in a proactive way where you can have a one-to-many dialogue for training and development purposes over the internet and over video. Customer service and tech support capabilities now are being improved by the integration of web chat and the integration of video, particularly when customer service escalations are required and you need the manager to step in and have a face-to-face conversation with an irate customer. We're seeing that deployment, that integration in those areas. So the use cases, the opportunity for UCaaS to drive down cost and improve the productivity in these areas is clear, and frankly there's no limit to the use cases that we're coming across now. And this is something that I think business is going to continue to take advantage of. Another factor, a huge factor that's driving, I think, the growth in our area of business is mobility. The penetration of mobile devices is a significant driver in the use of collaboration tools. The ability for people to be able to have a meeting from any device, anywhere, at any time, utilizing smartphones and tablets rather than physically having to go to somewhere to have a meeting is obvious. And the use cases around that, even if it's training and development, for example, to be trained in your home over a tablet, it's phenomenal. And you can think of a much broader range of potential areas where these types of technologies can be deployed. So in summary, business can and should be looking at UCaaS. That's as a service, not the complexity of building and deploying yourself, but actually leveraging the services of a company like ours to improve productivity and increase efficiencies across not just internal applications, but B2B applications and B2C applications. And we're seeing UCaaS now being leveraged much more in these areas. And the potential for this, I think, is exponential. We're really at the cusp of it right now. One thing that's really important is to recognize that IT strategy needs to be much closer aligned to the business need than it's ever been before if an organization is going to leverage these tools to the full extent and being able to get the most value from them. And more forward-thinking IT directors, IT managers now are embracing these technologies, but I think there's still a long way to go in that respect, where IT really is integrated into the business, understands the needs across this broad gamut of areas, and actually delivers the value that the business needs. Obviously, this is our core competence, and we're developing that competence with new services based upon that platform I alluded to earlier. And we'd very much like to play a part with you in exploring these avenues and these areas where UCAS can really help you to improve the use of technology in the business. And we look forward to those opportunities as they arrive. On that note, I'd like to just close off and thank you for your consideration and listening to me talk a little. I'd like to invite Audrey from Frost & Sullivan to come up and speak. Audrey is representing Frost & Sullivan, who have been looking very much at the trends within the Australian market for unified communications. And I think she has some content to share on that note. So Audrey, thank you.
All right, thank you. And I understand that everyone's in the mood for drinks, and this is really the wrong time for PowerPoint presentations. So I'm really going to keep it very short, crisp, but exciting. So as my role as a research analyst, we go through a lot of trends. We observe a lot of trends in the market, and, we present some of these trends at conferences. So really delighted to be here today. What I'll be going through is really just at the very high level talking about some of the big trends we're seeing today in unified communications and collaboration. But there are also some very interesting trends today impacting the market globally. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard of those trends, but I'm just going to go through them really quickly. And then before I conclude, I'll just talk about the Australian market in particular. So I think two of the biggest trends, and you heard that from the presenter earlier, one of the biggest changes today in the industry is mobility. There is no question about it today that, mobility is changing the face of how enterprises work. If you look at this diagram here today, this talks about the future of the enterprise. And it really tells you that it's going to be very collaborative in nature. Today we hear about bring your own device, or BYOD, as a very big theme. And Australia is actually one of the most advanced markets today in the Asia-Pacific region for the usage of mobile applications, mobile devices. And because of that, you can just imagine, even as it was highlighted earlier, when you talk about tools and technologies like unified communications and collaboration, all of that moving into a mobile environment and seeping into the mobile enterprise is going to be very common. In fact, a lot of organizations today are already on that journey. Another big trend we're observing today is cloud computing. I won't go into that too much, but cloud has taken the Australian market by storm today. Nearly every discussion I have today with the IT manager or CIO, there is some adoption of software as a service or infrastructure as a service or platform as a service. So when you talk about mobility, you talk about multiple devices, BYOD, you talk about cloud and virtualization technologies. This is really what the future of the enterprise will look like. And then when you bring in collaborative tools like video conferencing and audio conferencing and a lot of these other collaboration technologies, a lot of them will be based on these two pillars. And we're seeing that today. One big trend that we're seeing in the market is the industry today is moving now beyond mobility and cloud into what is known as the Internet of Everything. And that is going to be a very big trend this year in 2014. I'm sure you're hearing a lot of analysts also talk about that. And let me just explain what that means. Basically in the 1970s, we were all very familiar with, mainframe proprietary equipment. And you talked about the number of people or things being connected really just in the millions. And applications were really hardly anything. Then we moved into the PC and the internet era in the 90s, as you can see. And we looked at hundreds and millions of things being connected. But the applications were still in the tens of thousands, as you can see from this chart. And then the big disruption happened somewhere in 2010 onwards when mobility and cloud computing just hit us all, and it changed business processes. It made a lot of companies, just eventually disappear from the market. A lot of companies today are struggling because of that. And this phase of mobility and cloud, we're seeing actually the amount of people or things being connected today really in the billions. And then the applications are really in the millions. But what the market is moving towards is really the Internet of Everything, whereby every device and every sort of application will start talking to each other. And that's really what the future is all about. So it's going to be beyond cloud and mobility. And you're talking about really trillions of things connected, from your fridges to your washing machines. Today you talk about wearable computing. A lot of us have devices like Fitbit and, all those things where we track our, health and sports activity. And then the applications will really be in the tens of millions. So we're really moving into a very application-centric world. So high usage of apps, will compel organizations to take enterprise mobility very seriously. And as I mentioned earlier, Australia is probably one of the fastest growing markets for this, and there's no question about this today that every IT manager or CIO has some sort of enterprise mobility plan on their agenda. Whether it's introducing a corporate app store, containing apps, introducing collaboration applications as part of their mobility strategy, whether it's unified comms, it's everywhere today. The discussions are just going into multiple dimensions. And because of that, mobility will be the crux as well, as you heard earlier from the presentation for unified comms and collaboration. One big trend we're observing also is that today, as consumers and as employees, we no longer just communicate using, voice channels or email. What is known as OTT or over-the-top play is really coming on very quickly before us. And it's sort of like a disruptive trend because a lot of these technologies are cheap, easy to use, easy to deploy. They bypass the carrier network, and applications like WhatsApp and Skype, they're increasingly becoming really strong in the market. And we're seeing more and more of these applications like WeChat and a lot of other technologies from markets like China really come in. So very interesting times in the market because whilst you have all these interesting trends happening, you also have very innovative OTT applications just emerging. And it becomes a problem again for the IT manager because then it's, a question of how secure is it, should I allow my employees to use it, can they download it? And that's why the emergence of corporate app stores will be a very big trend as well in 2014. So before I talk about the collaboration market, I also like to share this trend that, today in the APAC region, and we've run this study many times, we test the market just to see how Australia ranks with some of the other countries in Asia in terms of cloud adoption. And cloud adoption, particularly here in Australia, is extremely high. It's almost 50%. And this is a huge market for the usage of software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service. So vendors like Amazon and Salesforce.com, as well as all other vendors who've been selling software and technologies for many years, are already on this as-a-service model, and the acceleration, we're actually expecting very huge growth in the Australian market in the next 12 months as well. So the Australian collaboration market, which is what I guess a lot of you are here for today, and if you look at where InterCall is, this is a very big market in terms of opportunity. You're talking about a $270 million opportunity here in Australia. Large organizations, medium-sized organizations are really deploying these solutions. It's beyond just voice and email, as I spoke about earlier. Organizations have moved past that into a very collaborative nature for web conferencing, video conferencing, tying that in with voice, collaboration technologies. And the growth engine in the future will really be at the integration of all these technologies I just mentioned, except that it will be driven by cloud computing. That will be the pillar that will drive it. But also mobility will be that very strong underlying platform that will enable a lot of these collaboration solutions to be used. So if you look at this chart, collaboration services, which is the brown bar, really accounts for very significant revenues here in the Australian market. And if you look at just the breakdown, because I just wanted to show that split, audio and video conferencing continues to see very healthy growth in Australia, although it's very mature. If you just look at audio conferencing technologies, there's a lot of growth around video, web, and the Australian market. You clearly have vendors like Microsoft pushing with their Link solutions. You have a lot of other vendors emerging in this space with very innovative applications. And then you have some vendors trying to disrupt this space completely, like the OTT vendors I spoke about, and also players like Google. So it's a very interesting landscape right now. It's not just about one technology being used by the company in silos, not just audio, but a combination of audio, video, web, and all of that integrated into one single platform. Some of the key growth areas in Australia we observed include areas whereby webcast was becoming important, video conferencing services, and a lot of event services as well. So, very healthy growth in the next few years. So this is a very interesting trend because as part of the collaboration research, we also split the market into how much of these collaboration services are used from a mobile landscape. And I can tell you that in some geographies or in some parts of Asia, the numbers are normally quite low. But Australia leads again in the adoption of mobile collaboration applications in the APAC region. So today, the discussion with the IT manager or CIO is not about just unified communications and collaboration, but rather how can I get all these applications on a tablet, on a mobile device? My employees are on the go. How do I manage this from the mobile device? And therefore, a lot of video conferencing services, a lot of these bridging services from mobile devices will actually become very relevant. As you can see, the growth, is also very high, something close to 20% over the forecast period. So what is very interesting about this space is, when I started tracking this market, many years ago, when you just talked about voice, this was clearly just a telephony market. You talked about just PBX vendors. Remember the days of PBX when everyone just talked about, traditional telephony, where you had people like, Alcatel, Lucent, and vendors like NEC, just selling siloed applications in the market. And all of a sudden there was a plethora of players because of IP telephony, and we saw vendors like Cisco come on. And then the competition got really strong a couple of years ago when a lot of software vendors started entering this market, unified communications as a service or in unified comms. Microsoft, for example, coming in with Link. And then the market got big when a lot of the operators like Telstra and BT started getting into this space. But the niche players also like InterCall, Arcadin, and all the other players in that space were also offering services. Now, all of a sudden, if you look at where this market started off 10 years ago to where it is today, it's such a complex market because there's so many different providers. Consolidation is on the rise, huge competition, and there's a lot of new disruptive forces coming in, as I spoke about earlier. A lot of the OTT players, a lot of vendors offering solutions for free. And if you look at the opportunity today for unified comms as a service, it's massive, but the competition is also really on the rise. So we expect, a lot more consolidation as well in the coming months. And this was presented earlier, and I thought I'd highlight that again, but it's a very good chart to show because as part of our research, what Frost & Sullivan does is we track the market, but we also track it very stringently across market share and future growth strategy. And we spend about 12 months normally for that calendar year where we look at, product innovation from the company, how well the company has done in terms of market penetration, margins, market share, and of course their future growth strategy. And yeah, I'm pleased to say, that at the APAC level, the Asia Pacific level, that if you look at the Champions Quadrant, and this was presented earlier, InterCall actually did quite well in the region. So they, in a very, as I mentioned in the previous slide, this is a very competitive market. Lots of consolidation, lots of players entering this space, but you have very niche players here. But clearly these are some of the vendors that are today leading in that Champions Quadrant. So before I conclude, I'd just like to I just reiterate what I said today, and that is, the two big trends driving change and significant change. And here in Australia, what we're seeing is definitely cloud and mobility. Every single discussion today the analysts have with, IT managers or CIOs is clearly around cloud and mobility. How can we introduce some of the unified comms solutions or collaboration solutions, but how can we also incorporate it from a pay-as-you-go or as-a-service model, or how can we incorporate it onto mobile devices? So mobile strategy today is so important for all these technologies. We expect very good growth, as you saw from some of the charts, especially in the Australian market for cloud-based enterprise communication solutions. So some technologies in Australia have been mature for a long time, so you've always seen flat growth. But when it comes to some of these cloud-based collaboration solutions, I think, we can expect a lot of good momentum in this market, and mobile collaboration applications as well. So with that, I'd like to conclude my presentation today. Thank you.
We have just one more speaker, you'll be pleased to know, and then we can all talk and drink. Mr. Frankie. So I'd like to introduce you to Christopher Frankie, who, as it says here, is the head of our UC strategy for the region, and he's going to talk a little more about what we're doing.
Cheers. Hey, everyone. So I wanted to give a few minutes on some insights from a product perspective and a strategy perspective. I have the privilege of working with a lot of our clients over the region, listening to them, talking to them, and I just wanted to share some of the things that we've seen over the last 6 or 12 months in terms of what's happening there, what challenges they're facing, and some of the trends we're seeing specific to our client base. So to start off with, the changing world of collaboration. Collaboration is one of those industries that's rapidly evolving and always has been. Something we've seen recently is this kind of, over the last couple of years, it's been much about connecting devices. Anybody that's received a sales pitch from our organization or any other communication organization would have heard any device, anytime, anywhere. It's all been about connecting those multiple devices to talk to each other. But what's happened was we sort of came to a roadblock after we achieved that, and I think a great analogy that explains that is if we look at SMS services compared to something like Apple iMessage. So SMS was relatively basic, but it would work with any GSM phone you had. You could send an SMS and you knew if they had a mobile phone, they would be able to receive that message and send it back. When Apple introduced iMessage, they expanded that across devices. You could send it on an iPhone, on an iPad, or a MacBook, and you could send and receive those from any of those devices. That would all be synced, and it really got to that any device, anytime scenario. Unfortunately, what happened was if you wanted to send to somebody that wasn't on an Apple device, it no longer worked. So if you wanted to send a message to somebody on an Android or a BlackBerry or a Windows PC or a Windows phone, you no longer could. And so what started to develop was this battle of the ecosystems. And the same thing happened in the corporate environment. With Microsoft, with Cisco, you could connect all of your devices in that ecosystem. But the challenge became, how do you connect to other organizations that are on a different ecosystem or a different platform? And that's something that we've spent the better part of a year looking at how we could help. And we decided that the best way we could do that is to create a platform that would work with all of the ecosystems, and we would really be the mechanism that you could communicate from your ecosystem to others. You can leverage the advantages that you have of connecting those devices in your ecosystem, but then through our platform, you're then able to connect into other ecosystems and connect to all of their devices. One of the other challenges and I suppose trends we've seen is budgets are getting smaller. There's a lot more pressure on to get more bang for every buck that you spend. The demands of end users are increasing, but generally the budgets for buying those services isn't. So one of the ways we've been looking to try and enhance that is extending the life of assets. So taking that sunken capital that you have in your existing assets and extending the life of those. And one of the ways to do that is to make sure that the core functionality continues in use for a lot longer. So if it's a PBX, that PBX will continue to function as a PBX for as long as possible, increasing that return on investment because you're getting more out of that asset. And the way we help to do that is expand the capability and capacity of those assets through an integrated platform. And InterCall being InterCall, it's a cloud-based platform. And that's for the many advantages that cloud-based situations have. But one of the best in this scenario is that elastic adoption and adaption to the real-time users. So rather than having unused capacity on sunken assets that you're not getting returning investment on, leveraging the ability of the cloud to scale in real time to what capacity you need at any moment in time. The platform that we've built is built on ISIP, and it's a global platform. It's the largest of its kind. It has over 300,000 ports of capacity. It runs 1 in 3 conference calls from an audio perspective globally. And it's also integrated into all of the ecosystems, into a Microsoft ecosystem, a Cisco ecosystem, a VIA. It's integrated with a services layer with the world's best collaborative services, with BlueJeans, with WebEx, with Link. And it's also integrated from a carrier perspective so that we can provide that network connectivity both to your clients, both to you, as well as connecting our infrastructure. And we only work with Tier 1 carriers so that we can provide the quality of service and dependability that you need when you're looking to make this a critical part of your expansion strategy. The final thing I wanted to talk about is end user expectations, how they're changing and what sort of challenges that's representing. We're seeing a lot of this. End users are sort of, since the smartphone revolution, the pervasiveness of broadband internet, they've started to develop their own expectations as to what they should be delivered on, how they should communicate with things like FaceTime and Skype, and how they should be accessing their information. Things like YouTube have changed the way how end users feel they should be getting their content. 1, they want it in high definition. 2, they want it easily searchable. And they also want it to be user-driven and user-generated. And so this is what your end users look like when they're at home. They're sitting on their iPad, Skyping or FaceTiming their relatives or friends in high definition. When they want to see a recipe or they need information or training, they go to YouTube, they type in what they want, and they have instant gratification. They then go to work, and more than often than not, this is what they see. If they want a video conference, they get a remote that has 400 buttons on it. They've had to book it through some other department. It's intimidating. It's not what they're used to. They then have a landline phone that looks like this. Most people now rarely use their landline if they have a landline at all. They're used to a touchscreen interface. They're used to being able to just touch who they want to call, whether it's video, whether it's audio, in a simplified UI. And then when they want content, then they're looking at something like a SharePoint or a wiki or an intranet, which generally speaking is nowhere near as feature-rich or it has the user-driven content that something like YouTube has. So we've spent quite a lot of time trying to develop solutions that are going to help bring the consumer expectations in line with corporate expectations. So QoS, security, customization, branding, bringing that into the corporate environment. So we have things like Corporate Tube that is designed to give that user-generated content, that rich media experience, that searchability of content. We have things like BlueJeans to bring that consumer level and that consumer ease of use for video conferencing into the corporate world and working with the corporate sunken assets. And then things like Mobile Meet, which are designed to really allow end users to run from the smartphones that they run in their consumer environment and bring that into the corporate environment. The final thing I want to talk about is the challenge of delivering this content. And this is very specific to things like YouTube and Corporate Tube. How do you deliver something from a public CDN like Akamai to all of your internal end users? You get that aggregation of network traffic that then ends up collapsing the external network connection. So how do you solve this at the moment? You end up throttling all of that bandwidth down so they no longer get high definition. They get postage stamp size videos and it's not the experience they want. So what we did was we developed a system of a private content delivery network. So this is peer-assisted delivery. So it allows you to deliver high definition and all of the content and deliver on those expectations, but no longer destroying your external bandwidth. So it works in conjunction with a public CDN like Akamai, and then creates a private CDN within your network so that you're no longer dependent on here. And what we've seen is this allows incredible increases in user-generated video content because they have the ability to receive and send that video as they need in a definition and in a capacity that they're wanting. And that's pretty much it for me. That's what we're seeing in the industry. We're seeing it across the world, and there are definitely challenges we've seen across industries as well. And we're more than happy to talk with you and see if we can do anything to help you in those arenas. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, and hope you all got some value out of those three great speeches today. So thank you very much, Christopher, David, and also to Audrey. Now, as promised, 30 minutes, so we are done. This is a great opportunity and to wet and whistle, have a drink, and also mingle. Please ask any questions of the speakers today, but also of the InterCall team that are here with you today. We are very keen to share our insights and also our future vision of how we can improve the way you collaborate. Thank you very much.